Hello, and welcome to another edition of Ben Wilkoff Debriefs the Transition. Today, I would like to debrief a little bit more of the purpose statement. Last Friday, Jackie and Stella were working together to provide feedback on the purpose statement. Nick had already put some things in, and I realized that both Jackie and Stella were just downstairs at ESC2, and so I would walk down the stairs rather than just typing in my comments and going back and forth on the document. And we resolved most of the conversation that we needed to have there, and I felt really good about that. But the one thing that we did not resolve was the statement around expanding access for devices and software. And the software was where we were getting hung up, but I think it's both devices and software together. And the problem was that devices and software feel very limiting, right? These are sort of the raw tools that we use and recommend and support, but it feels strange to say we want to expand access to devices and software that support learner needs, right? And we label out the learner needs of the instructional, physical, and social emotional, right? It all makes sense, but it doesn't necessarily feel quite right. And I wanted to talk through why it doesn't feel right and why we either need to be okay with it or we need to find something else. So the reason why, for me, it doesn't feel right to talk about the devices and software is we as a industry, as a community, have decided that the device or the technology is not as important as the instruction. And we even continue a mantra of it's not about the tool, right? It is about the pedagogy, or it is about the way you use it. And while I actually do believe some of that, I keep on coming back to a lot of the original research around kids using computers. So Seymour Papert is one of the sort of original researchers. He wrote Mindstorms in 1980, and then I think The Children's Machine was his other sort of big research book around students using computers. And essentially he created Logo, right? The little turtle that you would program on the Apple IIe. And he talked about how these tools were not so much technological tools as they were thinking tools. And if a child could program the turtle to go up 90 and to the left 30, right? If the child can do that, then it is teaching the computer to think and therefore understanding her own thinking. And so for me, it means that, and it's not just his research and just his thinking, but it helps me to understand sort of the power of the device as a means to creating something more, and why we would really focus on a device as the tool rather than just saying tool in a generic sense. And then in terms of software, I think I struggle with software is a super generic term, right? Like, we don't really run a lot of software that is not connected to the internet right now, right? The vast majority of the applications that we run are dependent upon the networks that we have created, whether those are social networks or they are just internet connected networks. Like, we are pinging the internet at all different times, whether it's the video that we create, right, or it is the the Google Doc. I mean, there is no Google Doc without the internet. And so when I say software, it doesn't really feel like that is what we're talking about anymore, right? Like, it's an app or it is an internet connected service, right? But none of those things actually get at the heart of what we want to expand access to. And I think that's what I'm struggling most with, is that I want to expand access to opportunity. I want to expand access to creation. I want to expand access to the tools for thinking. And I'm not sure how to say that without saying, well, I need a device to do this, and I need the software that connects to the internet that lets me make that happen. Or I need the software that allows for the thinking to happen and the need to be met. And so I'm struggling with that. I'm struggling with how it is that we communicate the whole of what those words mean. And maybe they mean something different to you, and we can sort of talk that through, right? But how is it that we can communicate the whole of the idea that this is a thinking tool, that this is a generative tool or a creation tool? And so is it, some way of describing a web application or a device for learning, right? But there have to be ways in which we can describe what we're trying to expand access to without having to use all of those words, right? I'm now at 6.5 minutes here of this video trying to think through, like, these are tools for learning. These are apps for learning, right? Like it's a purpose-filled conversation, and it's about what the purpose is. And I think we're trying to expand access to learners fulfilling their own needs through whatever this thing is, devices and software, tools and resources. It just feels so generic because I need the technological components. And maybe it's just expanding access to technology for learning or technology in general, right? Like it is internet connected technologies. Please help me through this. If you have ideas for what that X is, right? Expanding access for learner need through whatever the X is. What is the X? I'd love for you to help me to continue to think this through. And I hope you have a great day of teaching, learning, leading, and creating. Talk to you soon.